Hello students, my name is Mr. Idin Jama. Welcome to Darasa Online. I'm here to present to you the subject of biology. The topic of nutrition. But if you remember from the previous lesson, we have said this nutrition divided into two main parts. We have nutrition in plants and also nutrition in animals. Therefore, after completing the nutrition in plants, therefore today we are going to see another type of nutrition, which is nutrition in animals. But in this nutrition in animal, we specifically based on nutrition in human beings. Okay, student, in this nutrition in human beings, we normally deal with a digestive tract of human beings. Nutrition in animals, we have the so-called heterotrophic nutrition. But heterotrophic nutrition, we are talking about how the organism feed, how the organism use different material from the other organisms. Before going to explain the nutrition in animals or the digestive systems of human beings, we need to know some things which help this digestive system to function properly. We normally know the digestive system is covered by a specialized group of cells. And this group of cells, they are known as epithelial cells. But epithelial tissue, they are found to cover a different part of the body, such as a digestive tract, in the blood vessels, in the chamber of the heart, but also in the kidney, you see. Therefore, these epithelial tissues, they are found or they are located in different parts of the body, and they play many vital roles in these parts. Because our session is about heterotrophic nutrition or nutrition in human beings, therefore today we are going to see about these epithelial tissues. Therefore, the main focus of my presentation today is about epithelial tissues. Okay, what is epithelial tissues? In this epithelial tissue, we are going to see what is epithelial tissue, the structure of epithelial tissues, where are they located, location of epithelial tissue, but also how these epithelial tissues are adapted to function they perform. As I said, let's see what is epithelial tissue. Simply, by definition, epithelial tissue, we are talking about specialized group of the cells which is found to cover a different part of the body. Okay, therefore, this is a group of specialized cells which are always found to cover the different parts of the body. As I said, they are okay, they are found in the internal and the external surface of a body of an organism. These epithelial tissues, we're saying the layer of each epithelial cells, because we're talking about the epithelial tissue. This epithelial tissues is made up of so-called epithelial cells. Therefore, the layer of each epithelial cells is attached to the membrane called the basement membrane. Basement membrane. This membrane should not be confused with a membrane we have discussed in the topic of cytology. This is just a thin layer. This is just a thin layer which is not a barrier for, which is not a barrier for diffusion. This basement membrane is just a thin layer which is not a barrier for diffusion. Since these epithelial tissues or epithelial cells, they are not supplied with blood vessels. They are not supplied with blood vessels. Therefore, how these epithelial tissue receive a material like oxygen and other nutrients? Since they are not supplied with blood vessels, therefore we are saying they rely on lymphatic vessels for oxygen and other nutrients. Saying rely on lymph vessels for receiving oxygen and the nutrient. These lymph vessels, they are found nearby the intercellular space of these epithelial tissues. Okay. As you have said, these epithelial tissues, they cover different parts of the body. A good example, they are found in the digestive tract. They are found in chamber of the heart. Again, they are found in the wall of the blood capillaries and in many other parts of the body. What are the main functions of these epithelial tissues? What are the roles performed by these epithelial tissues? Because we have said they are found on the surface of different parts of the body. What are the main functions played by these epithelial tissues? Simply, these epithelial tissues, they have the following function. This is a general function of the epithelial tissues. First, we are saying it protects the underlying structure from physical injury. They protect underlying structure from injury. For example, abrasion or pressures. Such as abrasion or pressure. That is one of the functions of these epithelial tissues. But also, we're saying these epithelial tissues, they protect structure from infection, infection of what? Of microorganism. But again, as you have said, this is a general function of this epithelial tissue. Again, they protect the structure from drying out, or we call it dehydration, loss of water. See? Protect body from loss of water, or we call it dehydration. Not only this function, but also the epithelial tissue. It is involved in the physiological processes occurring in the membrane of the cell. For example, secretion of material or absorption of material. Epithelial cells are very important in this process. Therefore, we are saying one of the functions, it is involved in the physiological process, involved in the in this physiological process, it may be secretion or absorption of material. Okay, these are general function of these epithelial tissues. Remember that these epithelial tissues can be classified according to number of the cell layer present or shape of the cells. Therefore, classification of the epithelial tissue based on the following. First, we have said number of the cell layer present, but also shape of the cells, shape of the cells which make these epithelial tissues. Therefore, classification of epithelial tissues according to number of the cell layer, we have two main types. Two main types of epithelial tissues. These are simple epithelial tissues and compound simple epithelial tissue and compound epithelial tissues. What are the difference between these two? Simple epithelial tissue and compound epithelial tissues. We are saying these simple epithelial tissues, they are made up of single layer of cells, or we call it, they are made up of one cell thick. Simple epithelial tissue. We are saying they are made up of single layer of cell. Or yes, we can say made up of one cell thick. These compound epithelial tissues, compound made up of many layers of cells, or we are saying multi-layered cells, or simply you can say many made up of more than one cell layer or many cell thick. It means this simple, we generally say this is a thin cells, but this, since they are made up of many layers of cells, they are thick than the simple epithelial tissues. Okay. Again, after this classification, these simple epithelial tissues again is further divided into different cells according to the shape of the cell. These tissues, they are made up of different cells, but these cells, they have a different shape. Therefore, let us see types of simple epithelial tissues. These epithelial tissues, simple epithelial tissues, is further divided into 5 types. And these are, we have squamous epithelial tissue. Also, we have columnar epithelial tissue. Also, we have cuboidal, or sometimes we call it cubical epithelial Another one is pseudostratified. Pseudostratified epithelial tissue. And the last one is ciliated epithelial tissues. Okay, the following are the types of simple epithelial tissues. But also, as we have said, we have another types of epithelial tissues which are made up of many layers of cells. We call it a compound epithelial tissues. Again, this compound epithelial tissue, divided into 2 main types. And these are, we have the so-called stratified epithelial tissue, and transitional epithelial tissues. Okay, therefore, these are the main types of epithelial tissues which are found in all over the parts of the bodies. For example, you may see this is stratified epithelial tissue. It is mainly found in the buccal cavities, but again it is found in the esophagus. You see, this transitional epithelial tissue, it is mainly found in the part of the body like in the bladder, in the urethra, but also in the pelvic regions of the kidney. They are found there. You see, this ciliated epithelial tissue, they are mainly found in the respiratory system because of the presence of this cilia. It has a major function. Again, we have this pseudo-stratified epithelial tissue. Cuboidal, or we call it cubical epithelial tissues. They form the lining of the salivary gland. Again, they form the lining of many ducts, like salivary ducts and pancreatic ducts. Columnar epithelial tissues, these are mainly located in the part of the body, like the gastric gland, which is found in the stomach, you see. Again, in the intestine, they are there, you see. We have this also a squamous epithelial tissues. Again, these squamous epithelial tissues, it form the lining of salivary gland. Therefore, when you are talking about these epithelial tissues, they are located in different parts of the bodies. Okay, student, because our main focus is nutrition in animals, especially in human beings, and we know that in nutrition in human beings, we must talk about a digestive tract or digestive system. Therefore, our main concentration will be those epithelial tissues which are found to cover this part of digestive tract. It means from the mouth to anus. What are the epithelial tissues which are found in the buccal cavities, in the esophagus, in the stomach, intestine, and the other parts of the digestive tract? Okay, as I told you, we need to know all this epithelial tissue, but you need to remember that when you are asking the question will specify. Let's say, describe the epithelial tissues found in digestive system. This question is too specific. You must be able to explain only those epithelial tissues which are found in digestive system and not otherwise. After saying all this, let us see the epithelial tissues which are found in the digestive tract. And these are the first one is cuboidal epithelial tissue. Second one is columnar. Tissue. Also, we have the so-called stratified. Tissue, but also we have another type of simple epithelial tissue. We call it glandular tissues. These are the main epithelial tissues which are found in the digestive tract. Okay, before going to explain directly these epithelial tissues which are found in digestive system, let us see some different diagrams of these epithelial tissues which may be found in different parts of the body. For example, we have this. This is squamous epithelial tissue. As I told you, these squamous epithelial tissues, they form the lining, or they are found in the wall of the blood capillaries. Again, they are found to cover the chamber of the heart. Again, they are found in the kidney, tubular part of the kidney. They are lined with these squamous epithelial tissues. Because our main focus of today is digestive system, I'm trying to show you these epithelial tissues which are found in different parts of the body before going to these specialized epithelial tissue which are found in digestive tract. Therefore, this is a squamous epithelial tissue. As you can see, this is squamous epithelial tissue. It has a special junction which enables to hold the cells of squamous together. This one, junction holding cells together. But also, it has the central disc-shaped nucleus. You see, this is a nucleus. But if you remember, as I said earlier, these cells of the epithelial tissues, the bottom layer of the cell of the epithelial tissues, they are attached to the so-called basement membrane. As I told you, in this epithelial tissue, you need to know the structure, where are they located, and the function. These epithelial tissues, squamous epithelial tissues, is made up of thin, smooth, and flat cells. Thickness of these cells facilitates rapid diffusion of material. But again, this smoothness of these cells, it facilitates the smooth movement of material. Let us see another epithelial tissues, another diagram of epithelial tissues. This is we call it cuboidal epithelial tissues. Okay, cuboidal epithelial tissue. This epithelial tissues is made up of cells which has a cube-like shape. But also, as you can see from the diagrams, it has a central spherical nucleus. Each cell has central spherical nucleus. But again, the cells attached to the basement membrane, you see, they attach to the basement membrane. Again, these cuboidal tissues, they form lining of salivary gland. We know that salivary gland is responsible for secretion of saliva. Therefore, we're saying these cuboidal epithelial cells, it function as a secretory tissues. By doing what? By secreting material such as saliva from salivary gland. But this cuboidal epithelial tissue again, they form lining of many ducts, such as the salivary duct made up of this cuboidal, but again the pancreatic duct is made up of these cuboidal epithelial tissues. Okay, let us see another types of epithelial tissues which is found again in the digestive system, and this is columnar epithelial tissues or columnar epithelium. As you can see from these diagrams, the cell of the columnar epithelial tissues, they are tall and very narrow. You can see they are tall and very narrow. But these columnar epithelial tissues, it has a nucleus which is located at the basal end of each cell, as you can see there. Again, these columnar epithelial tissues can function as a secretory, but again can function as a absorptive. As you can see, this is one cell of these epithelial tissues. Epithelial tissues is made up of cells known as goblet cell. We know what is the function of goblet cells. The main function of these goblet cells is to secrete the mucus, and we know that this mucus, or it protects the part of digestive tract from being digested by enzymes. Again, as you have said, these epithelial tissues, they have the so-called basement membrane here, a basement membrane. But remember that, as we have said, this epithelial tissue, sometimes they have absorptive function. It means they have the structure which help the process of absorption to take place. And this is microvilles, though it is not shown here, but columnar epithelial cells, they have the so-called microvilles. What is the main function of these microvilles? As I said, this is columnar epithelial cells. Their cells are tall and narrow. You see, they have the so-called secretory, rotatory, and absorptive function. You said this columnar is made up of, or consists of this goblet cells, which secrete your mucus. The main function of this mucus to protect digestive part, for example, stomach and intestine from being digested by enzymes. Again, this mucus, it provides lubrication, provide so-called lubrication to digestive part. Also, columnar epithelial cells, it has this brush border. We call it microvilles. The main function of microvilles is to increase surface area for maximum absorption and secretion. Okay? Therefore, this is the structure of the columnar epithelial cells. With the goblet cell, which secretes mucus, there is a microvilles which increase surface area to volume ratio for the process of secretion and the absorption. You see? Therefore, as you have said, these columnar, they are found in the part of digestive system, such as in the stomach and in the small intestine. Therefore, location of this columnar in the stomach, but again in the intestine. Let's see another types of epithelial tissue. This is pseudo-stratified epithelial tissue. As you have said, this is a simple epithelial tissues. Pseudo-stratified sometimes may be columnar, but also sometimes may be ciliated. But we are saying nucleus of these cells, they are located at different levels, because not all cells reach the external surface or reach on the surface of these cells. We have this, you can see this, the nucleus is here. Therefore, they are in different levels because not all cells reach the surface of the cells. As they have said, we have some epithelial tissues which are found only in the digestive system, and some of the epithelial tissues which are found in other parts of the body than the digestive system. This pseudo-stratified, it is not found in the digestive system, but it is mainly found in parts of the bodies, for example, in the respiratory tract. Again, this epithelial pseudo-stratified epithelial tissues, it is found in the part of the body such as in the oviduct, because the presence of this hair-like structure enough to move material from one point to another point. Let us see another diagrams of epithelial tissues, and this is ciliated columnar epithelial tissue. We call it ciliated because the presence of this cilia, hair-like. But we call it columnar because of its shape. We have said the shape of the columnar, they are tall and narrow. You see? You can see. But because of the presence of this cilia and this shape of the columnar, we generally call it ciliated columnar epithelium. Since it has these columnar epithelial cells, again it has mucus secreting cells. We call it goblet cells. But you remember, we have said the basement membrane were all cells attached to this basement membrane. Let us see another diagram of epithelial tissues. It is this one. Yes, stratified epithelial tissues. This is a diagrams which represent the stratified epithelium. One of the types of compound epithelium, which are made up of many layers of cells. You see, therefore this is stratified. It is made up of many layers of cells. Made up of many layers of cells. Again, as you can see here, we have this, the so-called germinal layers. These germinal layers, it undergo a rapid mitotic division to form many cells. Germinal cell in the germinal layer undergoes rapid mitotic division to form many cells. But the first cell to be formed, it has a squamous shape. After formation of these cells, this squamous shape is pushed outward. And once it is pushed outward, it results into a formation of a flat shape. And this is this one, as you can see, this is squamous shape, flat in shape. But also we have this, a cuboidal cells. Therefore, it is this stratified is made up of different cells. Therefore, depending on this type of cell which are found in stratified, this stratified epithelial cell can be categorized into cuboidal stratified epithelial tissue, squamous stratified epithelial tissue, and so. As we have said, this stratified again, or it forms lining the part of digestive system. For example, this stratified it's mainly located, or it forms the lining of the buccal cavity, and that is why when there is even any minor injury in the buccal cavity, there is a faster replacement of this injury. This is because of what? The cell in the buccal cavity, or the stratified cells which are found in the buccal cavity, they have ability to multiply or to undergo rapid mitotic division. That's why replacement take very rapid. Location, they form lining of buccal cavity, or we call it mouth. But again, these stratified epithelial tissues, they are found in the lining of so-called esophagus. Form lining of esophagus. We normally know this mouth and esophagus is a part of digestive system. Another types of epithelial tissue, let us see another diagram of epithelial tissue. Actually, this is not a diagram of epithelial tissue, but it's a part which is formed as a result of this epithelial tissue. And this is glandular tissues. glandular epithelial tissues. Okay, glandular epithelial tissues, first we are saying these glandular epithelial tissues, they are made up of secretory cells which are closely packed together. Made up of secretory cells. Cells which are closely packed together. Okay, these secretory cells for example, there is a goblet cell. We know the function of goblet cell is to secrete mucus. Secrete mucus. But at some part of the body, these glandular epithelial tissues, they are folded to form the so-called gastric gland. They are folded to form a gastric gland. Okay, therefore, as you can see from this diagram, this is a gastric gland, but this gastric gland is a result of folding of a special epithelial tissues, or we call it glandular epithelial tissue. Therefore, this folding results into formation of this gland called a gastric gland. And the main function of this gastric gland is to secrete the so-called gastric juice. To secrete gastric juice, which contain enzymes. It secretes gastric juice which contain enzymes. You see? Therefore, as you have said, we have some epithelial tissues which are found in digestive tract and others which are not found in the digestive. Therefore, this glandular epithelial tissue is found in the digestive tract. Examples of glandular epithelial tissues which are found in digestive system are we have a simple tubular gland. Example of this simple tubular gland, you remember the so-called crepes of Libericans. Crepes of Liberican is one of the glandular epithelial tissues. Location of these crepes of Libericans located in the intestine. But the main function of this is to secrete the so-called intestinal juice, or in other words, we call it succus entericus. This another example of glandular epithelial tissues which is found in digestive tract. We have a simple branched tubular gland. Okay, Another example is simple branched tubular gland. And for example, here, this simple branched tubular gland, we are talking about a gastric gland. This gastric gland is located in the stomach. And we know the main function of this gastric gland is to secrete gastric juice. And one of the components of gastric juice is enzymes. Also, we have another example. We have the so-called compound tubular and compound circular gland. And this is salivary gland. What's the main function of salivary gland? I think everybody is aware. The function of salivary gland is to secrete saliva. You remember the component of saliva? There is water. There is salivary amylase, mucin, and so. Therefore, secretion from this gland is because of these glandular epithelial tissues. Okay, to bring this concept of epithelial tissue well understood to you, let me take you to see some of the sample questions that you may be asked from this part. Sample question number 1, describe the epithelial tissues of the digestive system. Okay, from the lesson, we have seen epithelial tissue, but we have epithelial tissues, they are found in different parts of the bodies. But the demand of this question need you to explain only those epithelial tissues which are found in the digestive tract. And I have said the epithelial tissues which are found in the digestive tract are as follows. The first one is columnar epithelial tissue. The second one is cuboidal epithelial tissue, but also the third one is stratified and glandular epithelial tissues. Therefore, describe the epithelial tissues of digestive system. You need to describe these 4 types of epithelial tissue. Therefore, here you need to know the structure of each, but also you need to know the function of each, but also how they are adapted to function they perform. But again, you need to know how are they related to this digestive system. Another sample question that you may be asked from this part, sample question number 2, how are the glandular tissues of alimentary canals adapted to the function they perform? How are they adapted? Okay, from the lesson we have seen one of the tissues which is found in the digestive tract, glandular tissue. And we have said this glandular tissues is made up of different secretory cells. These secretory cells, they secrete material like mucus. And we know this mucus is secreted by the special cells. We call it a goblet cells. But again, this glandula, we have said there is the so-called brush border, or we call it microvilles. The function of these microvilles is to increase surface area for the process of absorption to take place. Again, we have seen different examples of these glandular epithelial tissues like salivary gland, gastric gland, cryptofibrocan, and so. Therefore, what you're supposed to explain here, how these how these glandular epithelial tissues adapted to the function they perform. The key hint, you need to know the description of these glandular tissues. For example, let's say they have microvilles. These microvilles help to increase surface area for the process of absorption and the secretion to take place. The presence of mucus secreting cells, we call it the goblets. They are responsible for secretion of mucus, and we know the function of mucus to protect the stomach or to protect the digestive part. When you are talking about the salivary gland, it means the lining of this salivary gland, it is lined by these glandular tissues. Therefore, they are involved in secretion of material like saliva, secretion of gastric juice, but also secretion of intestinal juice, or we call it succus entericus. Therefore, that is what you are supposed to explain from this part. You stick only in the glandular tissues, not otherwise. In this question, it is only explanation from glandular tissue and not other tissues. Okay, let us see another sample question that you may be asked from the concept of epithelial tissue, and this is, briefly explain how the epithelial tissues facilitate efficient functioning of the alimentary canal. Yes, epithelial tissues, we have those which are found in digestive tract, we have those which are found in other parts of the bodies. The question needs you to explain how the epithelial tissues are adapted to the function they perform. Okay, first you need to know what are those epithelial tissues which are found in digestive system. After knowing all of this, epithelial tissues which are found in digestive tract, and then you need to explain how they are adapted to the proper function of the digestive system. For example, when you are talking about the digestive system, we are talking about, let's say, absorption of material, which takes place in the small intestine. The presence of epithelial cells, which are the microvilles, facilitate the process of absorption in the digestive tract. But also, we have said, these epithelial tissues made up of cells which are very thin. By being thin, the thickness of these cells facilitates again rapid diffusion of material. Also, we have seen some of the epithelial tissues, they are made up of goblet cells. This goblet cell, what it does, it secretes mucus. What the function of this mucus? To protect the digestive tract from being digested by enzymes. Therefore, these are some of the sample questions that you may be asked from this part. To understand this concept very clearly, I know you have many books, but you can use a biological science. It is well explained. The concept of epithelial tissue, it is well explained in biological science. The page of 133, around 133, there you can see this concept of epithelial tissue. But also you can use a book like a student book of Thai. Again, it explains the concept of epithelial tissue. Again, the understanding biology. Let me conclude my session by saying we have seen the epithelial tissues. You need to know what is the epithelial tissues, where are they located, what are the main functions of this epithelial tissue, how are they adapted to the function they perform. You see, after knowing this, you will be able now to answer many questions concerning about this part. Thank you so much, students, for listening. I'm inviting you to join me to the next session. Thank you so much. Bye-bye.